Topic of this screencast is social development, and we're going to talk about a variety of factors that relate to social development and some experiments that have been done to look at various aspects of it. So one thing we can start out with is talking about something called stranger anxiety. During the first year of life, infants don't really they don't really mind strange people. It doesn't seem to bother them, and maybe that's because everybody they see is brand new and they're everybody's strangers. But after that, they seem to have developed an attachment, and that's what we're going to look at here is attachment to the people around them, their primary caregivers, mom, dad, brother, sister, things like that. And because of that, then after about a year of age, infants develop what we call stranger anxiety. And you can see, for example, in this picture on the right that the child is not happy at all being left with a stranger. So let's talk about attachment. Now, attachment is one of the most important things that kids have to learn, and they tend to develop attachment, which is kind of like a bond between them and mom, them and dad, whoever. And it's not exactly the same thing as what happens in animals. Conrad Lorenz, back in the 30s, tested ducks, basically, and found that many different animals, and ducks are one of these, form attachment through what's called imprinting. When ducks are hatched, basically the first moving object they see, they tend to follow because they picture that as mom. And so they will start blindly walking, and following that particular object. And what's kind of interesting is they've had some ducks that they have imprinted to human beings. And so literally the ducklings, when that human being gets up and walks away or goes somewhere, well then those ducks will literally follow that human being. So that's imprinting. With human beings, it's a little bit different and maybe a little bit more complicated than just the first moving thing we see. That gets us to talking about like Harry Harlow. Harry Harlow did research years ago with his monkeys, and basically he did a little experiment where he was testing attachment with monkeys. Now you can see in this one picture, the monkey is kind of stretched out. Those are referred to as two surrogate mothers. What they did is they took an infant monkey, took it away from its natural mother, and the only contact that monkey had was with two, basically what we call surrogate mothers. The one on the left you can see was essentially just a wire frame with a face-looking thing on the very top of it. The one on the right was the same type of structure, again, a face on the top of it, but the one on the right was made out of terry cloth, so it was soft to the touch. And what Harry Harlow wanted to try and figure out was, how important is touch, how important is the sense of feel and touch to attachment. So let's take a look at this real quick. this experiment showed touch was extremely critical to the monkeys. And so that brings us to the point where we talk about other things there with attachment. For example, critical periods is a time period when something is most easily learned. And what we found is that monkeys, or even human beings, who are deprived of touch at a young age have a lot of trouble forming attachment when they grow older. And attachment's a big deal because attachment gives us a sense of security. Let's take a look real quick at this monkey raised by Harlow that basically has an issue.
Now, in this experiment, this is the apparatus we use. It looks diabolical. That's just the way the baby monkey feels about it. Flashing eyes, loud sounds, moving mechanical parts, all of these things are designed to frighten a monkey. Now here we have a peaceful, resting baby monkey. Let's find out what his reactions to his mother are when we frighten him. He's scared, all right, and does what any child will do in a similar situation. He runs away. It's more than running away. He was running to his mother, to touch her, to drive away his fear. Contact with the mother changes his entire personality. Look, now he's actually threatening the diabolical object. All right. This gives us part of the picture of the strength of infantile love.
Okay, now that we've talked a little bit about attachment and looked at the Harry Harlow deal, let's talk about attachment in children. And the most famous study on attachment in terms of psychology had to be the Mary Ainsworth strange situation test. And what she did here was she looked at children ages 12 months to 18 months old, and she put them in a situation where they basically were with their parent, but then she introduced a stranger into that situation, and then at some point in time she had the parent silently or quietly walk away and basically leave the room. Well, then when the child realized that they were in there with simply a stranger, they became distressed. And then she would have the parent walk back in the room, and she'd see how the child reacted to the parent, and kind of checked out the type, what she called the type of attachment that she saw. And she kind of narrowed it down to 3 different types. Now let's take a look at her experiment real quick, and then we'll talk about the different types.
But can the essential elements of home life be translated into a standard laboratory setting for controlled scientific study? After conducting extensive observations of parents and children at home, a student of Bowlby's, Mary Ainsworth, devised such a procedure called the strange situation, which places the child under some stress. It has become the most widely used standardized way to assess the quality of a child's attachment to their caregiver. Here the researchers are recording how 14-month-old Lisa responds in this attractive but unfamiliar setting. How will she react to a stranger? What will happen when her mother leaves the room? And when she returns? If Lisa's behavior when her mother returns, what psychologists call the reunion. If Lisa's behavior when her mother returns, what psychologists call the reunion that they are particularly interested in. Most important
Ainsworth, in her theory, she has basically three types of attachment. Securely attached children basically feel confident that the caregiver is going to be available to meet their needs. They see the caregiver as safe, kind of a safe base to explore the environment and then seek that attachment figure in times of distress. They tend to have mental representations of others as being helpful while viewing themselves as being worthy of respect. So that's a good thing. Insecure avoidant children. Okay, so avoidant attachment. Basically, they become very independent of the caregiver, both physically and emotionally. Those children are likely to have a caregiver who's insensitive and rejecting of their needs. They're unavailable during times that the child is in emotional distress. And avoidant children think of themselves as being unworthy and unacceptable. The third type is the resistant or ambivalent attachment, and basically kids have simultaneously kind of contradictory feelings and behaviors toward the caregiver. They become very clingy, very dependent, but yet they'll reject the caregiver when they do engage in interaction. And this behavior results from an inconsistent level of response to their needs from the primary caregiver. These kids tend to have a negative self-image and exaggerate their emotional responses as a way to gain attention. Numerous studies have supported Ainsworth's conclusion and basically saying that early attachment styles can help predict future behavior.